Hey everybody, it is Wintermute here coming to you from the Think Tank. And I'm going to start a new series with this video called Core Concepts. And what I'm going to focus on are notions within the game that are very important, and not like simplistic ideas, about how to move troops or conduct combat or anything like that. I'm going to talk more about, like this video is going to be about threat projection for the Axis primarily. And I'm going to explain what that means, and then I'm going to address some other kind of core concepts of the game in other videos. But with this one, what I mean by threat projection is I mean the Axis are in a position where they are the ones who start the war. They are the ones who decide when and where they're going to start the war by attacking and how they're going to conduct the attacks. The Allies have to do more of a guessing game because the Axis have so many targets that they can hit. So one of the notions that the Axis can do is they can throw up false flags to make the Allies have to cover areas you honestly don't care about and have them spread themselves too thin. And I'm going to start by looking at Germany here. So if you look at Germany, in 1936 they start off with a air transport right here, but you don't have an actual airborne unit. Now, even if you don't ever plan on using that airborne unit, if you build one in Bavaria or wherever for the air transport to have, suddenly the Allies have to look at that and go, well, what's he planning on doing with that? And they have to start looking wherever you put it and counting out 3 or 4 spaces from there, depending on whether there's an air base and other kind of things, and go, they have to start thinking, because if you never build that unit here or wherever, then really all France has to worry about is okay, well, let's just defend here. But if you build a airborne unit here, they have to start worrying, well, am I going to have to build some back units? So at least I have some defense here in case he wants to drop that airborne unit behind my lines. Maybe if he builds a second air transport, and another airborne unit, and then try to, take these two, and then, he has to start thinking about that. And even if you have no intention of doing that, he has to plan for that. So you may force him to spend resources in areas you have no intention of ever attacking. Because your goal may be to take Paris right away, and that's how you're going to beat the French, as opposed to surrounding Paris. But he doesn't know that, so he has to kind of plan for all the variables. And then, if you look at Britain, you've got an airborne unit. If they leave any of those back areas open, and that guy's sitting in Western Germany, you may just decide, well, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and fly him in a turn, take the British Midlands, disrupt his economy, disrupt his movement of ability to move units, and just harass him. And then after that turn, he's going to start having to build at least some militia or something there to kind of defend, because he doesn't want to have to constantly be giving you 3 IPCs every turn, or have to retake that every turn, and so on and so forth. And what if you use that airborne? And then let's go up to the ocean, or I'm sorry, the North Sea, not the ocean. Germany starts off with a single transport. Now, Britain has to think about what you can do with that transport in terms of coming up to Northern England or Scotland or wherever, and they have to plan for that. Even if you really don't ever plan on doing it. Now, if you put a second transport there, suddenly there's a multiplier effect, and they have to go, oh, well, now I'm going to have to even put more units down to defend, or really put more fleet between you and me, because I can't risk having you actually come over and get a foothold in Scotland. And you may have no intention of ever doing that. You may be building them, one, just to make him waste defensive resources rather than offensive resources. And two, as far as you're concerned, you're going to go into Leningrad with that stuff. And that's perfectly reasonable. So that's what I mean by the notion of threat projection. When you are, as the Axis, is keeping your options open, trying not to telegraph exactly what your plans are, if you can get away with that. And another one of the better examples of that is actually Italy, of all people, because they can enter the war whenever they want. And even if you pick a strategy of I'm going to use Italy and I'm going to go into southern Russia and I'm going to help Germany that way, so that they can concentrate on the north part, and I'm just going to do this dance in the Mediterranean to keep the British busy, but I'm really not going to worry about this stuff down here. So if you do something like that, you don't necessarily want to telegraph that that's what you're doing. So Italy doesn't start off with a transport at all. So it still may be worth it to put a transport or two down in the ocean just to make Britain go, well, I've got to keep resources going down here in Egypt and North Africa because I don't know where he's going to land. And as far as you're concerned, you're not going to land anywhere. You're just keeping the British tied up. So again, and even further, what if Italy, they take out Abyssinia, they've got Italian Somaliland, and then they stage a transport and a couple escort ships down here, and they haven't gone to war with a major power yet. Well, now they're really projecting potential threat out into the Indian Ocean and South Africa because, from here, they can always come down and take South Africa if they've got a transport with units from Somaliland and there's no one defending it. So now Britain has to go, well, I want to shovel these units up to eastern Egypt, but now I have to keep them down, at least some of them down here and possibly elsewhere to keep that transport in check. So think about that as you're playing the game, is you want to try not to telegraph what you're going to do, and you want to just put resources out there to make them have to look at it and go, man, what is he going to do with that? I have no idea. Do I defend here? Do I defend here? How much effort do I put into neutralizing that? And hopefully you're going to spread out the Allies' defenses so thin that whatever you do want to do, you can just do it with all that much easier. And another option with that is you may stage this here just to keep them busy down here in South Africa. What if the British player, however, goes, you know what, I'm going to call his bluff. I don't think he's coming down to South Africa from Italian Somaliland. So I'm going to put a unit or two here and I'm just going to come up here. Well, what if he never really reinforces that, and then you do the math? Well, I've got a couple planes here. I can land 2 Marines. You know what? I think I'm going to take that shot. I wasn't going to, but because he didn't defend this, now I have the opportunity to take the chance and come and get this nice prize of South Africa. So you're keeping your options open. And at the same time, you're trying to make him play a way he doesn't want to play. And then, of course, there's, Japan is a classic example of this. Now, everybody knows they usually start off by going into China, but it's probably going to become a little more popular for them to go into the Dutch East Indies down here, just because it is an option. It's a little bit safer and riskier at the same time for reasons I'll go into in another video. But, look at all these islands that Japan has here, and they have that option of transporting units with their destroyers. So if you put at least one infantry on every single island that Japan owns throughout here, and then just put a destroyer right next to it, suddenly every island down here is threatened in one turn. One turn he can go, because there's an island here, 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 right? There's 5 islands right here. 6 if you want to include Formosa, or 7 with Okinawa. And then those destroyers can move, a minimum of 3. Suddenly he can start coming down here and taking, if the FEC or the Anzac player don't put any effort into defending some of these islands around them, then they're going to come down and they can just take them all in one turn. So now they have to ask themselves, assuming the Dutch are at war, do I have to start putting colonial infantry and or militia on every one of these islands to help defend? How am I going to use my fleet to try and get him to stop? And your entire time, you put one guy and one destroyer, but you're going into China. or you know you're going to go into the back end of Russia, or you know you're going to do something different, and let these guys waste money on defenses that aren't necessarily going to put them in a good position to counterattack you once you make your move. So and conversely, it's excuse me. So again, you may set that up and you go out. I'm just one of them, but they never do that. Well, then you go, well, okay, well, just all right. When I go to war, I'll swoop down, take all these money islands, and I know they're not going to be able to take them all back right away. That'll give me some time to go farther inland into China, which is what I really want, or swoop down here and take this, which is what I really want, and then I'll just kind of come back here and retake some of these islands that maybe they took from me at my leisure. So the goal with threat projection is to force your opponent to spread himself too thin and to play in a way that he doesn't want to play. And that's any kind of board game I've ever played where you have the ability to affect the way your opponent plays. If that opponent gets to play exactly how they want to play, I think you are in a much worse off position. If you force them to play a way that they are not comfortable with, that they don't want to do, then that's going to make your job all that much easier. So that's the notion of threat projection. And in this game, I talk pretty much just about the Axis. And this is just a general concept that I wanted to address, not specific strategy, because this concept can be applied in a lot of different ways. I just gave a couple examples of staging your transports in an area that threatens extra islands, or putting a air transport with an airborne, on the edge of your territory to make the opponent go, oh, great, where's he going to land that guy? Even if, you don't want to. Or just putting your units out farther, staging them just farther out than where you would ever expect them to be, just to give yourself more options when the time comes, and to make your opponent go, great, well, that's one more thing I have to think about, and I'm already stretched super thin. So again, that's the idea of threat projection. I will probably do a separate video for the Allies. It just covers some basic ideas of what they can do. But you probably already can think, well, now that I think I'm going to be playing America next week, now that I think about threat projection, let me think about the different areas I can put different types of units to hopefully make the other guys start thinking differently, or playing a way they don't want to play. And then on top of that, Russia probably deserves its own, because its ability to project its threat is a little different, because they can't just go willy-nilly and do they're a little more landlocked up there on the north end. The way the map is and the way the rules are about them messing with minor powers and invading them and things like that. But again, so I think they deserve their own video. But so that's, if anybody has anything they want to add to the concept of threat projection, leave a comment. And if you think maybe I missed something obvious, or need to maybe address something I didn't think of, then please feel free to leave a comment, and we'll kind of build on this. And as we move forward into the video series of core concepts. And this is Wintermute from the Think Tank, signing off.